This is Basket Case Clubs, CPR Group's podcast where we turn basket case clubs into showcase clubs. G'day everyone and welcome back to Basket Case Clubs, the world's best podcast about all of the shitty things that clubs do and how to fix them. I'm Michael Connolly and it is my pleasure to be your host on this podcast, and joining me, as is mostly usual but not entirely usual when he's in hospital recovering from back operations and the like, my brother and partner in basket casey goodness, Steve Connolly.
And I've missed you too. And that's not just you, Mick, but everyone out there, all of our avid listeners. Yes, you're all going to be getting sick of the theme, which is, oh, Steve's back from back surgery. But we'll blame this really long hiatus on that, shall we? Even though there's a whole lot of other reasons, like being really busy on things and stuff.
Cool projects.
That's right. With a lot of our listeners too.
And I loved the assumption of brotherly love in there, Steve, where you said, I've missed you too. I didn't say I'd missed you.
Yeah. It's a standing assumption, okay?
Yeah, and well, that's largely because while it might have been a few weeks between podcast recordings, I get to see you all the time. It's our listeners that don't get the pleasure of your company all the time.
This is true. And nevertheless, I've missed you since we last spoke 8 minutes ago.
Yeah. Or in the preamble, sorting out the content for the episode. Oh, so I got to tell you a funny story.
What a surprise!
Unfortunately, it happens all the time, but I have a distinct memory of when this topic first started pissing me off. I was on the highway going into the city and can you believe it, Brisbane traffic. Like, there was traffic in Brisbane. It's so amazing how wonderful the climate is up here and how many of our southern counterparts have moved up, because I went, well, we're in lockdown and they're on the beach surfing in Queensland. Let's go there. And I've got to be very careful because I'm from Victoria. You might have been born here, Steve, but I'm from Victoria. So I am one of those people that came. So I am contributing to the terrible Brisbane traffic. And I was behind a tradie ute, and I'm much happier behind tradie utes because, as somebody who drives a ute, Steve, you know that when the ute sits right on your ass, whether your daytime running lamps are on or your headlights are on, they're right in my rearview mirror. So it's right there, and it's kind of frustrating. So when I'm behind, though, I'm looking straight into the back of the tray from my car that sits a little bit lower on the road. And on the back of the tray, I forget the dude's name, but it was something like, and I'll use Mick because that's my name, Mix Painting, contact us for all of your domestic, commercial, industrial, like seriously, dude, just pick a niche and stick to it as far as business. So I'm having all of these thoughts running through my head about how much of a terrible businessman Mick the Painter is.
But so you thought, I'm going to send him an email.
Well, I could, because his email address was right there. And it was something along the lines of Mix Painting 1212674 at gmail.com. And I went, dude, like,
so professional.
It's 2025. Get some web presence. Have a business email address. And what shits me about it is I could have started that. My name's Mick. I could have started Mix Painting 1212764, whatever it was I said before, at gmail.com. There's nothing stopping me setting that up as an email address. So how legit is this guy really? And then you compare that to contact us, sales at lightningfastpainting.com, and you go, okay. And especially when it says we specialize in this type of painting, and these are whatever our point of difference is. So from a business perspective, Mick had none of that, but specifically from a comms perspective, there's his mobile number and an email address that could be just anyone. Anyway, that's interesting because it has always bugged me. But we're getting to a point where it's bugging and confusing people involved in sport. Not necessarily the people involved in delivering sport, but the people involved in supporting the people who deliver sport. So that includes us. So we're here to help. But if I can't get you because somebody else didn't redo the President 62 at tigers.com.au, President. Let me start that again, because that's what they should have. They should have, and it shouldn't be President 62. It should be president at tigers.com.au. So buy your domain name. I suppose if you truncated it, it would be a name. Oh, right.
You got to get off the soapbox before you correct yourself. So I
You have a crack.
I am similarly frustrated, as it probably won't surprise our listeners to hear. And we've talked about this in the past. And this, I think, for many is a bit of a subconscious reality as well. That when a parent signs up for a particular sport, or when you get a quote from two or three different landscaping providers or painters in your scenario, there's an air of professionalism that comes with showing everything that a proposal or an invoice, must show. But even just the basics of an email address, if it's at Gmail, and I pick on my wife for still having a Hotmail account, and yes, they
Wow.
still exist.
Yeah,
Oh
but cling
yeah.
on, cling on to it because I lost mine. Mine was Mick Connolly at hotmail.com and I didn't keep it up and
Oh
it
wow.
shut and then somebody else took it and then it was gone.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Mick
They'll be
Connolly at
worth something one day.
hotmail.com, RIP. Yeah.
So, so there's, I think, just an air of professionalism that a lot of people won't even consciously perceive that may well guide you to, for you and I, we're people who rant about this sort of shit, so we are going to notice it. But for many, I think that they'll just be subconsciously guided towards the organization that has the professional outward facing image, and that it just, and especially in the, so let's then jump over to the not-for-profit sector. And in the not-for-profit sector, there's no excuse, because yeah, you might spend literally a few bucks a year on your domain, but other than that, you can get access to this stuff at no cost from some providers and for very little cost from others. And not only
So
do
what
you
sort of
get,
stuff are you talking about there?
so the email addresses. So like you said, president at, secretary at, treasurer at, the position based email addresses. And not only do you get access to the email account, but you also get access to all of the hosted storage that comes with that account, which has the added benefit of, and yes, sure, the naysayers will say, oh, but I get 15 gigabytes of free storage with my at Gmail account. Yeah, sure, you will, but you won't get any of the
And who
enterprise
owns that?
management. And that's a question that you and I have supported organizations to deal with really challenging situations in the past where that very question is raised. And I kid you not, one of the tennis clubs that we've had to deal with through a broad range of challenges right now is having a fight because the previous committee set up their at Gmail secretary account. And as you know, when you set up a Gmail account, you need to set up a backup of recovery email. And because this particular bloke who was the previous secretary set that Gmail account up and used his personal email as the recovery email, he's saying, well, I set this email up under my email account, twisting words, and therefore I own it and the club doesn't, and we're not obligated to hand the email account over to the new committee, which is complete, insert frustrated word here. It's
Well, is it?
nonsense.
Yeah,
But is it? That's
no, it's true. He's 100% right. The club has no
no
say
ownership.
in
Yep.
that data. It's his data. It's the same as if this going off
And
a
this could
little
be a
bit.
really expensive, lengthy court battle to fight this out, which the new committee are saying, bugger it, we're
We'll
just going to
just
move
start
on and
again.
set up a
Yeah.
new account. And they're going to do it right this time. Sorry,
Yeah.
I cut you off.
But the same thing happens in the old days when we'd have a club laptop.
Yep.
And if that's a club laptop, then everything on that laptop is club data. But if the secretary
Unequivocally,
says, "Oh
clear
no,
as.
I don't need. I've got my own. I'll just use my own. I'm more comfortable with my own because I'm a Windows user and that's a Mac, or I'm a Mac user and it's a Windows." The club should have actually insisted because anything that goes onto the personal computer isn't necessarily owned by the club. And then it's exposing from a cybersecurity perspective. And 10 years ago, this was a very different discussion.
Yep.
Nowadays, it's like protecting your data and cybersecurity are not optional. And just being a little club doesn't mean that you're not exposed to the same real financial and reputational risks of an individual or a for-profit company just because you're a club.
Yep. And that's a really important point that volunteers need to remember is just being a volunteer organisation doesn't mean you can, not do the right thing. But just this discussion about the email account being set up and the recovery email being the bloke's individual personal email account, has that been tested in your experience, or have you done research to clearly identify that email address, although it's because this is the name, likeness, or image, or whatever that influencer consideration thing is. And there's, the world, according to some stories that I'm hearing, are going crazy about people suing this person because they're portraying themselves in the likeness or image of someone else who's an influencer. And I can't keep up. And you're looking at my smirking face, knowing that I am the last
So
person
this
to
is what they're
understand.
fighting about when we have deepfake. When I can create
Yes.
an avatar
Well, I believe
video
that's
of
part of it. Yep.
anyone, so long as I've got enough footage to train the models, and this is still what they're worried about. Look, the answer to your question is I do have an answer to your question, and it is absolutely equivocal. I don't know. I don't
But
know.
is it a freaking fight you want to have? And the
No,
answer
it's
to
not
that
a
is
fight you want to
absolutely
have.
not.
And
Yep.
how much is it going to cost if they choose to fight it? And what's the real benefit of fighting it? And is a judge even going to accept it or go, you know what, you
Deal
guys
with
have to
this.
go through an
Yep.
internal grievance procedure
Yep.
and we're not going to allow you to waste your members' money fighting something that you should have done correctly in the first place. So
Yep.
go and sort your stuff out. Be adults about this. And the bigger question is, why is old mate protecting the data?
Absolutely, that's the bigger question.
He's not
My
doing it
read
for
on
the
it is
money if he's a
no.
volunteer.
My
So,
read is it's out of spite because they got the ass from members who then voted
so
this current
power.
committee in. Absolutely, and just not being adult about it, I think, is
Yeah.
probably a nice way to sum it up. To
Yep.
use the word that
Yep.
you just did.
Please
But
don't say
again,
that to him, though.
this
You,
again, this is just a fight you don't want to
yeah,
have.
you don't
Why
need to
waste your
have it.
time on this
Yeah,
shit?
yeah. Okay, so let's unpack why we've got clubs that don't have their own domain names and why they're using president62 tigers at gmail.com. There, I knew I'd get it right, rather than president at tigers.com or .com.au.
Hmm.
And it's because they don't own their domain. They're saying, well, we don't
Yep.
need to own a domain because we don't need a website.
We're
Well,
not we're just volunteers.
yeah. And we're not a business. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just let the disappointment in my face and my voice sink in for a little while. Yeah, that still happens.
Yep.
But too many, and it's particularly little clubs. Larger clubs are not always, but mostly doing a better job here.
Yep.
But they don't bother getting a website because you've got to pay to buy a domain name. You've got to pay to retain the domain name. You've got to pay for web hosting. You've got to either pay to have somebody do the development for you or pay for access to a WYSIWYG type system, editor system that you can do it yourself, but then still do the time doing it. So I just don't want that hassle. And nobody goes to the website anyway. They all just contact us on our Insta page or our Facebook page,
Mm.
which is actually a bit of a trap because,
Yep.
again, many of those meta pages haven't been set up as meta business pages. They're connected to an individual page or an individual profile. So administration rights then don't get handed over. And then we've got multiple versions of digital presence of clubs that makes the customer experience or the customer journey to becoming a member in the first place unnecessarily complicated and ugly.
Yep.
The
Yep.
reason that it's so important to have a website, in my opinion, is that your website is one of the last places online where you can still be in complete control.
Mm.
Can be, like if you are using a Squarespace, for instance, and Squarespace's skins change, then that might change the experience. But if you take the next step and you're doing a bit more of the design yourself or just using a template and sticking with that, you can control the user journey, the user experience from start to finish. So
Yep.
what does it look? Plus, you've then got, from a marketing perspective, you've then got the ability to establish different landing pages to assess the effectiveness of different marketing campaigns that you're doing. Now, a marketing campaign doesn't need to be something like in the old days that would cost tens of thousands or millions of dollars even to do billboards and magazine advertising and newspaper advertising. Now, newspaper, Steve, is a big fold out paper booklet that used to have the news in it. And it was literally printed in black ink and it'd rub off on your fingers. And then you could use it to line the bottom of your pot plants when you're finished reading it or in the bottom of your bird cage to catch all the bird shit. Those were the olden days type campaigns. Now a campaign can be, well, we've connected with this particular group and we've put a social media tile on this group's page, and anyone who clicks that will go to a particular page. So you can set up a landing page specifically for that campaign, which might have cost you nothing, or it might be a boosted post that has cost you $8 per click or $2
Yep.
per click or a matter of cents per click. But then you can track that, you can you design the experience and it's exactly how you want it. But because there's the fear of time and money, and oh, I don't know how often you hear it, but still, we've got people saying, "Oh, I'm not very techie." Like, please stop saying I'm not very techie. It's not as an excuse anymore. It just makes you look lazy. Even in the not-for-profit sporting world, it
Yep.
just makes you
Yep.
look lazy. We're all techie. We have to be techie. And by the way, I'm calling bullshit on you saying you're not techie because I've seen you how fast you use your thumbs typing on your phone to send a message to your family chat or whatever.
But on so just quickly to go back to a comment that you made early on in this discussion, where you said people who deal with clubs in the sporting realm are getting frustrated with this. So councils are a great example, and councils, to the point that you just made then about clubs needing to keep up and needing to get techie, councils are following digital only lease renewal processes. If you want a lease from your local council, in many cases, you must follow a digital process. Yeah, sure. Council officers will be there to help you and guide you through the process for the first time that you've done it. But there is very clearly an expectation, and to that matter, we know of several councils with which we work that are also requiring organisational email addresses. So
Mm.
gone are the days where they'll accept even at Gmail or at hotmail.com, and they're saying for you to do business with us, you need an organisational email address. And I say kudos, good on them. They should be requiring that. But this is absolutely well into the 21st century. This is 2025. We have such an expectation in every aspect of life that we're going to be able to keep up with technology. And for some, that's more difficult than others. But the reality is that you've got to get on board, otherwise you're going to be dragged kicking and screaming into the
Yeah.
future.
And that's it's going to sound harsh, but if you are trying to hold back the development of your club to the point where you're demanding that your council prints out a copy of the lease application form and then does the data entry for you because you want to do it the old school way, then it might sound harsh, but please get out of the way and leave your seat vacant for somebody who's going to help progress your club, not hold it back. There's no excuse anymore. So have a critical look. So this started as a discussion about email addresses specifically, but it branched into domains, branched into why you've got a domain name because you've got web hosting, the use of social media and people's replacement of having a good website with social media because they don't function the same. They serve different purposes and you're in control of them in very different ways because if Mark Zuckerberg changes what Facebook looks like, your page will just change. You have no control over that.
Yep.
You might have noticed the little question it says when you want to post, it used to say, what's on your mind? And then it changed and then it came back. So that's not up to you. That's all up to the very, very, very clever people at Meta to make those sorts of decisions. So if you want to be in control, your website is the best and somewhat only place that you can still do that.
And you pointed to the real importance of organisations not falling into some of the traps that we've seen some fall into with Meta pages or other social media platforms where there's just one. So firstly, set your page up right and make sure that it is not a personal page. It's not a group, unless if that's the approach that you're taking deliberately. But if you want an organizational profile, set the page up right and don't only then have one administrator. Make sure that you've got redundancy built into the system and you provide for succession. The same applies to your email or administrator account with your managed enterprise or organizational email accounts, so that if someone gets sick or if your one techie person isn't available, you have the capability
You got
to get in and
redundancy.
you
got a
so you
backup.
must build that
Yeah.
into this, because again, some of the same challenges that organizations face by not getting access to information or data from the previous committee or the previous secretary can still present themselves if you don't get some of this succession stuff right and set things up right from the outset.
Yeah, and where it's going in terms of online grant applications, for instance. When was the last time you
Yep.
saw a paper-based grant application? And lease applications now going the same way. And we're
Yep.
working on a system that will actually do the whole assessment process, but it's all online and it's all digitally driven. And what really bugs me is the same people who say, "Oh no, I'm not very good with that. Can you print me out a copy?" These are the people who, because you save $15 or something, will book their Jetstar flight online. They won't ring the Jetstar call center because they'll have to pay more. So, again, I'm calling bullshit on it. Sorry for the distortion there as I got on my high horse again. Gee, the air gets thin up here. So The point that you made, though, that I want to come back to before we wrap up is that you said that the services available, so hosting services, document management services, email services, are available for not for profits for free. So these are the enterprise systems. So to put some names on it, if you are a not for profit, then you can get a discount, and that discount can be up to 100% for services by the likes of Google. So, our business, for instance, is in the Google environment. So, our email is hosted as Gmail. It doesn't look like Gmail, but it is hosted by Google. But that gives us access to Google Workspace. So, all of the storage, all of the AI tools. If you're in the Microsoft environment, then that would used to be OneDrive, Office 365. So if you're already in that environment, then access to uh, what's that stupid thing called? Outlook. That's right. No, I was being facetious there because I'm not a big Microsoft fan. But I tell you what, owning the universe when it comes to tech is a pretty good position for them to be. But even they, a juggernaut that is so big that it's now allowing the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to solve real problems on the planet, they're still giving it away for free. So they're all
Yep.
giving it away at a highly discounted rate for community organisations. So there's a sign up process. You need to verify that that your not for profit bona fides can be verified. All very easy, but absolutely do it. And then you've got payment management systems, accounting
Hmm.
systems that you can get not for profit discounts on. So my big takeaway here is now maybe get a pen, don't be a tight ass. Spend the gosh darn money. Actually pay the money. Pay for a domain. Pay to set it. It's what do we pay? $24 or something for, and that's a couple of years registration. Okay, then you've got your hosting costs. It's nominal, but the
But again,
impact that it has.
if you're using those other services, and it's important to mention that some of those website builders also come with options for email and file storage and so on. And again, do your research and find the solution that's best for you. But there are plenty out there, and the excuse to no longer make use of it because you're just volunteers no
Yeah.
longer exists.
And for those of you who already have these systems in place, then hopefully this has been a bit of a check to say, oh, okay, that's why. That's why it's important.
Mm.
Don't sit in a meeting saying, oh, look, I've been through the financials and we've been paying $290 a year for this hosting service. Don't get rid of it because that $290 is probably saving. How many hours does $290 need to save of volunteer time before it's worth it? Because that volunteer time, let's say it's going to save 20 hours of volunteer time. So what's that, like $10.50 an hour or something? If like obviously your time's worth more than that, but what other volunteer tasks are you not doing if you've got to spend extra time managing something that could be managed really simply by a
Hmm.
solution, for which, by the way, there's a not-for-profit discount anyway. So,
Yep.
like we've been saying, there's no excuse. It's 2025. Just pay a little bit of money and save a lot of time, but it improves the overall look and appeal of your organization. So we mentioned government from a grants perspective. We've mentioned council from not only a leasing perspective, but just all of the general support that our councils provide for our sports clubs. None of them are in a cost recovery model, 100% cost recovery model. They're all here to support you doing what you do for your community because
Mm.
that helps the council. That's exactly what they want. They want you to be able to be there to support them. But it's also the commercial relationships that you've got. How good do you reckon it's going to look if you go and ask for a $20,000 sponsorship from some local business or a national business and you're rocking up with a President 62 Tigers at gmail.com?
Yep.
How professional does that look to them? Like
How good a job does that look like you're going to be able to do promoting their business? How
when you
seriously are
can't
people going to take
when you
you?
can't even promote your own.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, gee, it's fun doing this, isn't it, Steve? But it's been full of solutions. We might have had a bit of a bitch. We might have had a bit of a rant, but we have given you the solutions. We haven't necessarily said use this system over that system. There are plenty available.
Yep.
Do your research, find what works for you. And sometimes doing your research can be as simple as asking around the people who are already doing it in your club what they're doing and just listen for any cues. If they're saying, oh, bloody takes me forever, that's a cue. Oh, I hate doing this. I'm not techie. That's a cue. Oh, yeah, we use this system and it's really easy. Oh, do you want me to show you how to do it? That's a good clue that you're on the right path. So get there. Hopefully you're already there. Hopefully this has just been a good reminder. But if nothing else, it's why you've set it up like that in the first place and roll with it. Keep doing it. Steve, as usual, this has been mighty fun to have a little bit of a rant.
Most of a rant.
Most of a rant. Yeah, I was just thinking. I think I need a saddle and a bridle for this high horse of mine.
Thank you for
Uh,
bringing me along on the journey.
yes,
Was
yes.
I riding side saddle? Was I in the chariot behind the horse on which you were perched? I don't know.
I'm just going to let that one all go through to the keeper. We have a wonderful webinar coming up this month. I think it's next week. Is it the 19th, Steve? All about grants. So, what are you going to be talking about when we get into the grants webinar next week?
It's the 21st. Yep. So next
21st.
Thursday, we
21st
are
of August, 2025.
21st of August. Yes. And we're going to be taking a conversational approach to this one so that it's nice and accessible for people who've registered. If you haven't yet registered, do so. cprgroup.com.au/webinars. And we're going to be talking about starting with your project and not the grant. So all too often organisations get an opportunity for money dumped in their lap and they hurriedly scramble to try and pull together a project that's eligible to get an application in before the closing date, which is probably only days, maybe if they're lucky, weeks away. So we really focus on doing the project planning first and getting clear on what your organisation's all about and what projects are going to support it to achieve its purpose and deliver on its objects, and then go looking for money. So we'll talk about some practical tips for preparing compelling arguments in grant applications. We'll touch on how to make ethical use of AI and to get the right amount of support from AI that you should be getting in writing grant applications. So we'll take some of the pain and heartache, hopefully, away from people writing grant applications that were never going to be successful because either they weren't eligible, the project wasn't eligible, or they missed the deadline because they weren't well enough prepared.
And if this has come too late and you are hearing this on the 22nd of August and you want to backdate it, then just contact us for access to the recording, because we will be very happy to make that available, because this is something that we see people muck up all the time. And it's like, when the grant is available, oh, great, what can we get? No, you should have a anyway, well, won't give too much away. Steve, thanks again for joining me. Special thanks to Jess, as always, for being our wonderful editor and producer. And special thanks to all of our listeners for sending in the topics like this one, which was, hey, is it illegal for clubs to not have an email address that is an organisational email address? No, well, no, it's not illegal, but there's plenty wrong with it. And if you forget why, just rewind a little bit. I look forward to catching up with you again next time, Steve. Until then, see you later.
See you next time. Ciao.
Basket Case Clubs acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country on which we record, being Yugambeh, Turrbal, Jagera and Kabi Kabi land. We recognise their enduring connection to land, waters and culture, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to First Nations listeners.